Well, the latest U.S. Drought Monitor shows nearly 40% of California is facing drought, and this is typically a time of year where they don't see a lot of rainfall. But California farmers say the bigger issue is the state's man-made drought, and California's water crisis is coming at a cost to both farmers and consumers, as we show you in this week's Farm Journal report. In the heart of the Central Valley of California, Eric Hansen is the 5th generation to farm this fertile ground.
So we farm 15, 16 different crops, anywhere from pistachios, almonds, cotton is our biggest acreage.
Diversifying what they grow is how the Hansens have weathered the highs and the lows of farming here. But one of the biggest challenges came in the spring of 2023. Okay, where we're standing right now, was this underwater?
No, so about a mile, slightly more than a mile away from here, that was the edge of the lake.
But I mean, it was a massive hit when it happened, because how many of your acres total did you have underwater?
Total about 5,000 to 6,000 acres.
Gosh, all underwater.
Yeah.
And some of that water lasted how long?
For over a year.
What's so ironic is water caused catastrophe in 2023, and now it's not having access to water in the state that could cripple some farms, ultimately pushing this fertile farm ground out of production.
I think the last projections I've heard would anywhere from 1.1 million to 1.2 million acres total in the valley.
That frustration over fallow farm ground is a result of the latest water regulation to now go into effect. It's called the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA. It's a state law passed in 2014 requiring local agencies to create and implement plans to achieve sustainable groundwater use by the year 2040.
On paper, it sounds good. To some extent, it is good because you really have to have a way to manage the overdraft of the groundwater. The problem is that there's surface water facilities that we developed back in the 50s and 60s that are available that we're just not using to the extent that we could. And so a lot of that water is going out to the Pacific Ocean.
You hear from other growers pretty frustrated about what this will mean. As a farmer yourself, are you frustrated about SGMA, or are you in the camp that we had to do something?
I'm frustrated because the families that have been farming here for years, some decades, sometimes even more, are being fitted with a bill for problems that somebody else created.
As a result of SGMA, and depending on if you're in an area that has access to irrigation water or not, farmers are being forced to leave land fallow just to have access to the water they need.
This is a pretty well-developed cluster.
Just 40 miles away, Elizabeth Keenan is one of those farmers battling the changes in water regulations, and she's just 30 years old.
Rolling with the regulatory punches can be complicated, so we have quite a few challenges as, number one, a small business, and number two, as an ag business in California. It's not a very business-friendly state. Despite pistachios being such a high-value product in the States, despite having optimal land and weather conditions to grow these pistachios, we really have everything set up beautifully except for legislation.
Her grandpa saw seeds of opportunity acquiring this orchard in a real estate deal nearly 50 years ago. And today, this is one of the oldest pistachio orchards in California. But still, farming here is ripe with challenges.
Water's expensive. It's tough working, especially in our water district, who are awesome people, but it's a tough district to work in. I mean, I think we're up to 50% allocation, and the base allocation is 2.2 acre feet. So we get 1.1 acre feet that we get to use. Otherwise, we have to have open fallow field to be able to pump more water to run both our plant and farm our pistachios, which is a whole complicated issue. And beyond that, we have to go buy water in the open market, and that's expensive too.
And what's exacerbating the situation is this. Sign after sign, all lining busy highways and interstates, claiming nearly 80% of California's total river water flows are being sent to the Pacific Ocean instead of farms. Claims that California freshman Assemblyman David Tangapal says are absolutely true.
It's 100% happening. That actually in the state of California, almost 83% of all water in the state of California is automatically pushed out for environmental purposes. 83% is pretty much how they've locked in the legislation.
And for Tangapal, the core of the issue can be tied to what he calls bad legislation.
And so we have an average of about 200 million acre feet of water fall in the state of California. That's our line. We know that. We've been tracking it since about 1864. And if we know that the average line is 200 million acre feet, then we should also understand what we need to keep here, what is going to be able to service to. But we have prioritized so much environmental legislation right now that more than 80% of our water is allocated towards wetlands and pushed out immediately to the ocean.
That's just one of the policies Tangapah wants to change. But in order to change, the narrative is something Tangapah and others in agriculture are also trying to fix.
It boils down to regulations. You know, what we have here is special and unique. It doesn't exist on this scale anywhere else in the world. And the food and fiber that this state grows feeds this nation.
Thomas Putzel works with farmers across the Central Valley, and he's seen the impact of mounting regulations firsthand.
We passed a water bond 10 years ago to build additional water storage so we would have it and not waste this water. Not one shovel has gone in the ground in 10 years, and the voters already approved it. Actually, they took some of that money and tore dams down. You know, we haven't built any new dams since the 60s. How many more people live here since then? We got to feed and provide water for this nation and for our state.
For these crops rooted here, it's not just a yearly investment. These are permanent crops that when the water withers away, these crops will die too. It's a high-stakes industry in California, and for these farmers, they can't just pick up and move. This is their livelihood on the line.
I would say government is probably the biggest problem right now, and it just seems that California hasn't really decided whether or not farming is in their best interest. They haven't taken the time to discover, the reasons why it would be in their best interest. A lot of politicians that like to say that they are for the small guy and they're for small business and small farming. But virtually everything that's passed legislation-wise in California when it comes to business makes it more difficult for small business to survive.
It is not a new challenge, but one we will continue to follow. Well, when we come back, Mexico is seeing a surge of New World screwworm cases in cattle. Ag Around the World is next.